There is one thing that every manipulator, every narcissist, every person who has ever needed to control a dynamic fears more than an argument, more than confrontation, more than being caught. Silence. Not silence as punishment, not silence as a tactic. Silence as absence. The complete, sudden withdrawal of something they didn't realize they were depending on until it was gone. You've probably felt the opposite of this. You've gone quiet, you've pulled back, and within hours, sometimes minutes, they reappeared. Suddenly available, suddenly warm, suddenly saying the things you'd been waiting months to hear. That reaction is not a coincidence. It is a measurable, predictable psychological response. And tonight, we're going to break down exactly why it happens and what it tells you about everything that came before it. In 1975, researchers ran an experiment involving two identical jars of cookies. One jar had 10 cookies, the other had 2. People rated the cookies from the nearly empty jar as more desirable, more valuable, even though the cookies were exactly the same. This is the scarcity principle, and it doesn't just apply to cookies. It applies to attention, to availability, to you. Here's what most people get backwards about relationships with manipulative people. They assume that being more available, more patient, more understanding, more present, will be met with more value in return. But to a nervous system calibrated around control, constant availability isn't experienced as love. It's experienced as certainty. And certainty has no scarcity. There's nothing to monitor, nothing to chase, nothing to secure. You became the jar with 10 cookies in it, always full, always there. And something that is always there stops registering as something that could not be there. When you go silent, truly silent, not as a performance, not as a test, but as a genuine removal of yourself from the dynamic, something specific happens in the other person's nervous system. It's called an extinction burst. This term comes from behavioral psychology. When a behavior that has always produced a result suddenly stops producing that result, the response doesn't fade gradually. It spikes. Think of a vending machine that takes your money but doesn't give you the snack. You don't shrug and walk away. You press the button again, harder, more times. You shake the machine. That escalation, that sudden burst of effort right before giving up, is the extinction burst. When you've always responded to messages, to silence, to the cycle of withdrawal and return, and then suddenly, you don't. The other person doesn't experience your absence as peaceful. They experience it as a malfunction in a system that has always worked. And the response to a malfunction is to press the button again, harder, more times. This is why the messages that arrive after genuine silence are often more intense than anything that came before. More affectionate, more urgent, sometimes more vulnerable than you've ever seen them. It isn't because they suddenly realized how much they value you. It's because the machine stopped giving them the snack. Here is where this gets dangerous. When that message arrives, the intense one, the vulnerable one, the one that finally sounds like what you've been waiting for, it feels like proof. Proof that the silence worked. Proof that they do care. Proof that if you'd just done this sooner, things would have been different all along. That feeling is real. The dopamine response is real. But what it's responding to is not a change in the other person. It's responding to the restoration of a familiar pattern after a brief, frightening interruption. The extinction burst is not the same thing as a behavior actually changing. In behavioral science, if the extinction burst is met with the old response, if you reply, if you re-engage, if you let the intensity pull you back in, the original behavior doesn't just continue, it gets stronger. Because now it's been reinforced with an even higher dose of whatever it was missing. This is why the cycle doesn't just repeat, it intensifies. Each time silence is broken by a return, the next silence has to be longer, or louder, or more convincing to produce the same effect. The silent cutoff is not a tactic to bring someone back. It's a diagnostic. It tells you, with more honesty than any conversation could, what your presence was actually doing in that dynamic. There are two possible responses to genuine silence. And the difference between them tells you almost everything you need to know. The first response is the extinction burst. Intensity, urgency, sudden depth, sudden vulnerability, all arriving at once, all arriving fast. This response is about restoring access, not repairing what was broken, restoring access. The second response is rarer. It's quieter. It doesn't arrive in a flood. It might not arrive immediately at all. And when it does, it doesn't ask you to come back. It acknowledges what the silence might have been about. That second response is what genuine reflection actually looks like, and it is exceptionally rare. Not because people are incapable of it, but because reflection requires sitting with discomfort without immediately resolving it. And the extinction burst is specifically designed, by millions of years of behavioral conditioning, to prevent exactly that. So if you ever find yourself testing this, going quiet, watching what comes back, the speed of the response matters more than its content. A response that arrives within hours, saying everything you've ever wanted to hear, is more often than not the extinction burst. A response that takes time, that's smaller, that doesn't perform, is more likely to be real. This video is not a strategy for getting someone back. If you use silence as a tactic, expecting a specific response, waiting for the extinction burst, treating it as a move in a game, you're still playing the same game, just from a different position. The actual value of understanding this is different. It's that the next time you experience that sudden, overwhelming return, the message that arrives right when you'd finally started to let go, you'll recognize it for what it measurably is. Not a sign that you should have waited, not proof that they've changed, a nervous system responding to the loss of access. The silence was never the trick. The trick was believing that what came back was for you, instead of for the gap you left behind. Now I've got a question for you. Do you know why some people achieve everything they ever wanted, but feel nothing when they get it? If you don't, next week, you will. Subscribe. Psych Unmasked. What people hide, what the mind conceals.